Well, the critics seem to have warmly embraced it. However, the fan base still seems to be divided. What else is new these days? What am I talking about? I'm talking about HBO's newest series, Watchmen. Now, Watchmen comes to us from Damon Lindelof, the same brilliant creative mind that gave us Lost and The Leftovers. And I'm sure just like us, you've watched the premiere and have found your way to this episode because you have more questions than answers. We're all in the same boat here. So stay right there, because after the music, we're going to try and shine a light and give you some answers in our Watchmen Aftershow.
Meanwhile, back on the podcast, 4 colossal nerds named Saba, Chris, Christina, and Frank have set out to take on a great darkness that has enveloped the world of fandom. With their powers of common sense and the strength to take on even the most butthurt Twitter mobs and insufferable comment section trolls, they fight for truth, objectivity, and nuance in the conversation and debate over fictional made-up shit.
Guys, who watches The Watchmen?
We do.
Welcome to the first episode of our series, Watchmen recap show.
Yeah, we're gonna do a full series on this. Hopefully, I'm gonna watch it every week for you guys. I mean, it's not much of a chore because I think we all pretty much loved it, right?
Whether they want to or not, we're watching.
We're watching it,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna review it for you guys.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's get our initial impressions. What did you guys think of this episode?
Okay, as a fan of Damon Lindelof on a much larger scale, like somebody who actually appreciates the ending of Lost, this show.
Oh, we gotta talk about that.
That's another episode.
Continue.
This show has so much potential, and it started off on such a high note. Honestly, there was a lot of extracurricular research I had to do before I could really appreciate what was put into this episode, especially that opening scene. We'll talk about that obviously, but like I really think that this is going to be this is a start to an amazing series for sure.
Saba?
For me, I love watching a show where I'm like, what is going on? Especially with the first episode, I like having those questions. I feel like the last time I kind of felt like that was when I was watching the first season of Westworld, and I love that feeling. And I kind of like that it was removed from Watchmen. I mean, there was definitely those homages to it throughout, and we're going to talk about that for sure. But I remember finishing the episode thinking, like, what the fuck did I just see?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said to myself.
And I love that. I really like that in a show.
Yeah.
Christina?
So for me, it started off a bit slow, but I like the timeline we're in, and I like the throwbacks to the comic, and I'd like to see where it goes. I think there's a lot of potential here too. So
For me, as always, like, even if I like it, there's always things that I'm nitpicking with it.
Oh, really? I'm so surprised.
Yeah, well, this is why I'm sitting here, isn't it? There were a few problems that I've had, of course, and so you said, like, I like that it's detached from Watchmen. I was kind of disappointed that it was detached because we had actually a lot of my problems with it is because we theorized so much of what we thought this show was gonna be, and now that we've seen it, we see, like, I don't know, like, I kind of fell in love with our theories, and not a lot of it made it, right?
Well, we don't know, though.
No, actually, I think there's a lot of stuff that we talked
Oh,
about
of course,
that
of course,
made it, but
it
I
made
think
a
that
lot
the
of
context
things,
of
yeah.
it is being understood differently, right? Like, we did say that Rorschach's journal was going to play a part.
And, like, it was,
right?
I think I said in one of the later episodes we did about it being, and I think we talked about this, it being a cult, that I felt like this was going to be a cult. And we talked about, I think, a bit about Rorschach's message and how it can be misconstrued, and we really see that.
I feel like that one missed the mark for me. I thought, like, I had a super cool cult in mind with, like, complicated motivations and, like, mysterious like agendas, and like, we don't know yet because
But we
it's
don't
episode
know.
1. But anyways, like, we'll get into it, but I was just giving my initial reactions, which is I liked it. Like, I thought it had a lot of potential as well. I thought it missed the mark on certain things, and we'll get into that for sure. And I did like how it was kind of like genre breaking as well. Like, it was like you were right. It's very reminiscent of, like, Westworld, where it's like what's even going on. It's like there's a lot of, like, elements that are very familiar. Like, it's like it was very reminiscent of the old Watchmen with like the slow, like, walking up to a building scene, breaking down the door scene. That's very Watchmen, but it's not. It doesn't stay as like contained in that shell as a true like sequel would be. So I did like how it took a lot of elements from everywhere.
I feel like they took Watchmen and they kind of crossbred it with The Leftovers. I really do, because I felt like the mysteries were so were so grand that you only kind of got to see the granular elements of them in terms of this episode. Like, you really only got to see, like, just the the tip of the spear at this point, right? But I think that this is where we're going. Like, Watchmen in terms of Alan Moore's work didn't really have a lot of mystery to it, right? It wasn't really anything too mystical in nature or too mythological in nature either.
But it was based around a mystery though. It was we were following Rorschach.
It was a whodunit.
Yeah.
It was definitely whodunit, but I'm talking about mystery on a more grander scale, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm talking about just weirdness, and there's a lot of fucking weirdness in this show, and there's a lot of weirdness in The Leftovers too, and it all comes from things that are tied to mythology or religion or science, and I think that Watchmen is this show is going to have a lot of that. I kind of feel like that.
I just want to touch a little bit on Damon Lindelof.
Sure.
So a lot of people attribute the success and the failures of Lost to Damon Lindelof, and for the most part, like, I thought he brought his greatest strengths to this. Like, as most people remember, like, he was responsible for like this sort of like breadcrumb syndrome that Lost had, which was a good thing in the earlier seasons, where he dropped a lot of clues and a lot of like
some
seeds.
of them went nowhere.
Yeah, so this is what I'm afraid of, is that like he's very famous for leaving these clues, and with Lost, like, I don't hate the ending. I'm not one of those people that hated the ending.
Right.
But I did feel like by the last season, I felt like these breadcrumbs were a marketing ploy to like keep you interested, because it didn't lead to, so like, he planted all these seeds that didn't sprout. It was just a thing that people were waiting for, and it was like, okay. Obviously, like, they were fighting like the writer's strike at the time, and there was the whole bunch of like problems it faced outside of the show itself. But I'm just fearing that like he does the same thing here, but I am hopeful that he won't.
I think because it's like a shorter series run, we're less likely to see that issue. With Lost, there was like the writer's strike. Also, it's like, I don't know how many seasons it is. It's quite a bit, and I think it's like not like this whole like 5 to 10 seasons of a show, and then there's no writer's strike. So I think he's more likely to sort of maybe like fill in those blanks better. Also, he's probably learned from these mistakes. I mean, they hear like all the feedback, he knows, Yeah.
Well, the biggest problem that he faced was him and his writer team. Actually, not just him. His whole writers team was like, they didn't have a definitive ending in sight, so they just had to keep writing. This discovery writing style didn't really fit them. And as soon as they gave him an endpoint, which was 2 seasons, he went back in there and wrote the shit out of this story, the Lost story. So I think if the Watchmen, or is it just Watchmen? It's just Watchmen, right?
It's Watchmen.
Yeah. So if Watchmen has a definitive end, I think his writing is going to be way stronger than we've seen it in the past, and his writing team anyway.
So I watched an interview with Lindelof today, and it was definitely in promotion of the Watchmen program on HBO, and he specifically states that the kind of storytelling he likes to do is stories that are paced with these breadcrumbs, these mysteries, these clues,
Which is fantastic.
And I think that he's one of the stronger people at doing that, to be honest. He wrote this first episode, So from what I could see in terms of the quality of writing in this episode, I think that we need to put a lot of faith in him. Plus, he's grown up. Like, when he got Lost, he was,
That's right, yeah.
that was one of his, that was the biggest scope project he had, and I think he was still under 30 at the time. Or just over 30. So I think that, he may be at a point right now that he understands the importance of closing loops and, providing emotional satisfaction to viewers. But he is an ambiguous storyteller, and, we have to embrace that.
Yeah.
Right?
I actually think that was one of the greatest strengths of this episode, and hopefully the series is ambiguity. Like, everything was, and there wasn't a lot of expositional dialogue that I fucking hate. It's like there's a lot of world. So we'll get into the first thing, which is world building. I loved the world building in this first episode.
Me too.
And they didn't like spoon feed it to you. There was a poster in the back. If you picked it up, you did it. You picked it up, and it was like this thing where you have to wonder, you have to do your research. I don't know. Like I've never been the person to tell like the audience to do your research. Like you shouldn't have to. Like a show should like provide all that like as you're watching it. But like it does give a lot of fans like a lot of things to discover and a lot of like Easter eggs to find, and it's like I don't know, like the world building in this episode I think is like very
Yeah.
So I'm not too familiar with a lot of his work. I watched Lost, but I only watched season 1 because I got lost in his storytelling. There was things I enjoyed about it, but at the end of the day, I didn't have the emotional payoff that I could like keep watching it.
It does in the last season. I'll tell you that right now.
Probably, but like I couldn't last that many
believe.
seasons. I got to the end of season 1, and then I think what season did they introduce the dark cloud? That's where I saw. I was like, what is this?
It was there in season 1.
Yeah.
It was there in episode 2 actually. But they just
so they brought it in, but then they said it was something mystical, and to me that didn't fit with the world they were in, and I was like, okay, I'm out.
But that's when you say to yourself, it's a fucking deserted island and there's mystical shit here.
Okay.
Like, how am I going to stop watching this show?
We might have to do a Lost episode.
I would love to do a Lost recap.
It didn't captivate me. I could watch it and do it with you.
That's his like writing style. It's like there's always this world, and then there's a deeper world underneath that one, and it's like you have to like there's so many clues to so many different things.
Yeah, so far I'm liking what he's doing with the clues in the Watchmen. That's kind of fun. It feels like he's a history buff too. So I think that's really fun that he gets to kind of play with historical timelines and take real events and then mix it with not real events, and then
we should.
The audience kind of, if you know your history, you'll be on top of that. You'll know what's real and what isn't. But I'm not familiar with U.S. history, so I did find myself having to research. But I didn't mind it. It was like educational and fun. It wasn't
speaking of U.S. history. Hands up that anybody here that already knew about the race riot in Tulsa in 1921.
Yeah, I had heard of it. I never looked into it.
I'm ashamed to admit that I never knew about it.
And that was a lot of there was a lot of tweets, especially so I was looking at Twitter while this was going on, and one guy said that I did not know that this ever existed, and we should all should have to educate ourselves. And this was basically one of the worst I guess attacks in almost American history when it comes to attacks on Black. It was in 1921 in Tulsa. And it was in a place where they kind of called like the Black Wall Street as one of the richest affluent places where Black people could live. And a lot of people, when they were watching that opening scene, thought like, oh, this is something that's like being kind of threaded into the mythology of the show. But it's not. And
I thought it was another timeline, another world. Like that's what I thought.
It's real.
And the fact that and that kind of set the tone for me, because in the beginning you see this little boy and he's watching this movie and his mother's playing the piano and he's mouthing the words that he knows, and there's something he mouths that one of the characters say, that there will be no mob justice today, trust in the law. And I feel like this is like the basis of what is going to be this show.
Yeah,
that's what Lindelof does. That's his style.
This like introduce the world. Yeah, he did that in Lost too with Locke. If you guys remember the first episode, and Locke was like holding the pebbles. Like, he loves doing that, and I think that's a really good device. By the way, did you guys know that the actor in the black and white movie is actually a real guy as well? He's the first Black marshal. So there's we'll get to that. I have a point about that. But let's take the first point on world building, which is. So after the events of the graphic novel, Vietnam is apparently a state now. So and if you remember, like the comedian and Dr. Manhattan both fought in the Vietnam War, and because of that, they won the Vietnam War. And if you guys notice that one of the flag, there's more stars there than in the regular flag. And
it's changed design too. It's a circle in the middle of a field of red and white stripes.
And then Richard Nixon is now on Mount Rushmore. Robert
Fuck.
Redford has been president. So this so the story starts. It has this 1921 flashback, right? Which is this based in reality, and then you have this alternate 2019 2020, which is this this new world that is really similar to ours, but not similar because it doesn't rain squids here and whatnot, or whatever else. So I think that's it's really interesting where he like takes parts of that, because I think that was like surprising too with like Regina King's
I had
character.
so many questions from that scene. I was just like, okay, there's an alarm for this. What the heck? How often
Well,
does this happen?
Because the alarm, I guess, is a safeguard. If
'cause you
the
can't even
giant
drive
squid
through
comes
it.
through,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So
Again?
it must be part of the world. It
Yeah.
must be something
Yeah.
that happens
yeah, it's a very,
regularly.
it's
So-
definitely a
this
very
happened.
real thing,
or they
yeah.
fucked up the climate based on
No. Okay,
Yeah, it
so
was on
what happened was
what they did in Antarctica in the comic.
So no. So what actually happened? So this is actually the moment where I realized this is based on a comic and not the movie.
Yeah.
I was a
Yeah,
little
it
bit
is
disappointed
completely
because
comic, yeah.
I was a little bit disappointed because I kind of liked that change. I know a lot of people had problems with it, but I like that change of framing Dr. Manhattan instead of his like weird other plan that he had in the comics. So essentially in the comics, he united the Soviet Union and the United States and averted World War III by summoning a giant squid
Yeah,
in New York City to destroy New York City.
Okay,
So
but the subtext was that he wanted people to believe it was an alien invasion, and he was
Yeah.
trying,
Yeah.
there was like a psychic wave that would like make everyone believe this phenomenon was.
Well, they did,
related
it
to
worked.
aliens.
It worked, yeah. So like that's pretty much like that's the history. Like, so as fans, like, you guys should know that this is what's actually based off and not the movie. So if you've seen the movie, you kind of have to like do a little bit more research if you want to know. So yeah, so the squid thing is real.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I bet
it
that's just like
rains
an
squids.
aftermath of like this alien invasion. It still rains
This fake alien
squids.
invasion.
But
Yeah.
we don't
Apparently.
know. Do we think that they think it's aliens, or do we think that they think it's just squids?
Well, the world
They
thinks
think
it's
it's
aliens.
aliens, yeah.
The world, like the public, thinks it's aliens.
but in the show, in
but the
this
Seventh
timeline,
Cavalry, right? The Seventh Cavalry, their part in this world are they're conspiracy theorists. They're I don't want to call them that, because there's a level of conspiracy theory that there are people that believe in conspiracy theories that are not as crackpotted as these guys.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are crackpots. They more or less believe in like the extreme of all extremes of everything, right? And they see the raining squid thing as like the same way that the like our equivalent timeline, the way that people see like chemtrails, right?
I don't
That's
think we
what-
know that yet
Yeah.
from what they presented to us in the show.
No,
though.
but sorry, there is a part with Detective Lookingglass when he actually asks him like, do you believe that raining squid rains are
Interdimensional.
Yeah,
stuff.
interdimensional.
yeah.
Okay, no. So here's the
Okay.
thing. I
I
consider
missed
that
that.
as well, but he was asking a lot of things to like
Get him.
imbalance.
Trip
the
him
per-
up.
the-
Like,
Yeah.
would
trip him
you
up.
like what
So I
would you
don't-
do if you defecated on the
I think they're
American
just
flag?
Yeah, I was like,
honestly, I
what?
think it's just control questions. It could mean more. Like, it's definitely could be a breadcrumb.
Yeah.
But like,
I think it's
But
a
we don't know
breadcrumb
what the
because it's
norm
Lindelof.
is.
I think it's Lindelof.
But we don't know
because-
what the norm is supposed to be in this
Sure.
world, so we don't know if the answer to that question is supposed to be yes or no.
yeah, like I think if this was our world,
That's a good
they would
point,
ask the
but-
question like, "Do you believe in the moon landing?" Like, it would be like these
Yeah.
control
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
that are just like
Right.
how stable are you in reality?
But
right
we
now?
don't know if the answer is supposed to be yes or no
Right.
based on what we know in the first episode.
Right.
I think
But-
we have to accept that like the answer for most people is yes, they believe in interdimensional because World War III didn't start, right? So like that's
Yeah.
the lie that Ozymandias.
Unless something else has happened between now and then that has like made most people realize that it's
Oh, yeah,
not real.
that's a possibility,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it'd be a weird thing to do off screen.
It might not be
Yeah.
off screen. It
Yeah,
might come
and
to
it's
light
first
in
episode,
future
so we
episodes.
don't, and this could be, it could, in this case, it could be like a marker for
Because they
the
seemed
Seventh
really
Cavalry.
casual about it. They weren't scared. They didn't think there was an alien. They were
Yeah,
just
because
like,
that
oh,
was like 100
whatever,
years.
like
that
random
was,
shit
like,
falling out of the
that
sky.
was 50 years
Yeah,
ago.
About
those-
30
Yeah.
years ago.
like you're all making valid
it?
points, but I think you have to make the demarcation between there's a group of people in this world that think Veidt was a hero and he did, he only did good things, and then there's people that think Veidt is the guy that killed Rorschach or led to Rorschach's death, which people are like already worship this guy, right?
And I think that makes sense. I think there would be
Sure,
people who
sure.
would be
So the
on
people-
side with his actions.
Sure. So the people who
But he was essentially a terrorist.
right. So the people who look at Veidt as a bad guy, those are the ones that are going to believe that the squid rain is being manufactured.
conspiracy. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not real, right?
Yeah.
It's not a biological.
Yeah.
It's not a biological phenomenon. It's actually something manufactured, right? So I think that's how you justify that.
But let's go back to like the Seventh Cavalry, and they're sort of like our introduction to them. So like
Yeah.
after we see like obviously this massacre in like Tulsa, and you see the little boy who escapes, and his dad writes that note like
Yeah.
like watch over this boy, which like really just breaks my heart.
Can we go back to the black and white movie for a second? Because
For
I
su-
think
oh,
that
yeah,
there's a
for sure.
lot of really cool symbolism in this.
Oh, okay, yeah,
and
for sure.
when
Wait, can
that
I go
movie-
first?
Sure.
Okay, so like, there's something I'm like kind of working out It has to do with that being the very first scene,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm comparing it to the very last scene. So in the very first scene,
Yes.
he captures.
That's exactly what it is.
A white
So he
man.
captures a white sheriff.
Yeah.
Right. And the white sheriff is corrupt. So does that, like, for me, I'm thinking like it's the same scenario. This is how the episode ends. So does that mean that the chief, he's a chief, like he's obviously supposed to be symbolized by the guy in the black and white movie. So does that mean now that he's a corrupt sheriff? Because there's also a lot of scenes in the middle that leads me to that, namely the scene with Panda, if you guys remember.
Yeah.
Which is a character I'm really intrigued by.
I really like the
like
idea of Panda, and I want to get to him
really
too.
weird.
Yeah.
I want to get to him.
And I like how
Okay,
Pandas
before-
are black and white, but anyways.
Yeah.
Before we dive into Don Johnson character, because I think I know where you're going, and I'm probably
Yeah.
going in the same direction. I wanna point out the use of iconography or reverse iconography in this sequence. Bass Reeves, the sheriff in that particular black and white movie, he shows up and he's wearing all black. The sheriff is in all white.
Yeah.
Right? He's also wearing a hood. His face is covered. Right? So technically, he's somewhat of a vigilante sheriff, or he's covering his face because, maybe there's certain regions that he can't ride through being a black sheriff. Who knows, right? But the fact that they reversed the color iconography, and they made the guy in white the bad guy, and they made the guy in black a good guy, really kind of set the bar for me, because it literally said that don't trust your fucking eyes. Don't think that you're going to understand who's good and who's bad in this story, right? Like, fucking Detective Lookinglass could be like the worst guy in there and we don't even know it.
Yeah, he's
right?
real creepy. He's giving me vibes.
Well,
for sure.
Yeah.
And also the chief was wearing a white hat too.
Yeah.
Which is also like part of the symbolism
think
that I
exactly.
really love.
Yeah.
I have a feeling there's not going to be good and evil. I think everybody's going to be like different levels.
I think that's the point.
Why
I think that's the
hated-
point of why they
Yeah.
did that, was to basically kind of neutralize that.
Yeah.
The black, the white, like trying to
I have a
figure
feeling
out.
that everyone's just going to have opinions and everybody's going to be doing their best to do what they think is good or right.
We'll put a pin in that because I definitely want to talk about the first and last scenes more. But since you brought up the 7th Cavalry, I do have some reservations about what they did with the 7th Cavalry, because I thought they could have been written much better, because I wanted this like bad guy who you're never sure what their intentions are and because it's like they're perverting the symbol of Rorschach, which in the original nobody really like knew what he was, at least in the beginning. Like Owlman was afraid of him, and like everybody creeped him out. He like whatever, but he ended up being the good guy in the end. But here it's like you're starting off the 7th Cavalry as a white supremacist. Like that can go only one way. Everyone's gonna hate them, and it's like I don't know if you can ever make them a complicated cult now. I don't know. I don't even want to consider them
I
a
feel
cult.
like
But
you can, and this is the thing. I kind of like that his message got kind of like corrupted that way, because that's what often happens to these people.
Yeah,
like
sure.
once the message is out of your hands, people take it and do
I'm not
whatever
against
they
that
want with
specifically.
it. And I think like with this, I agree with you that I don't think we'll ever see them as like the quote unquote good guys of the show, but I think from the first episode they're going to be a lot more nuanced than what we've seen, especially with like the collecting of the lithium
for
batteries, the doomsday clock, and also sort of that beginning scene where we first see them and we first see the guy with the mask in like the glove compartment. I do think that going into the show, it's very interesting that they place it in Tulsa and they have this race divide as another sort of layer to the show.
Yeah.
And that's why with the scene at the beginning with the cop, and it's the black cop instead of sort of the other way around, I think there's going to be like a lot of that. And I think like I said, I don't think they'll be like the good guys like you said, but I do think there's a lot more to them than what we've seen.
I think they're trying to explore real world politics with this.
Okay, so
I think that's why it's there, and I think they're going to try to explore nationalism.
They're trying to
and
ground it in something modern day. That's what
they
they're trying to
are,
do.
yeah.
And honestly, I kind of feel like that's kind of the trend of, the day right now. And I feel like that's low-hanging fruit, and I'm kind of upset about that.
Yeah.
Because I think that there could have been so much more done with this, where the 7th Cavalry could have been a little bit more ambiguous, and with their intentions,
Exactly.
instead of just tying it to like something.
I agree. Yeah,
I don't agree at all with
Well,
I
that.
agree, but
Well, hold
they
on, hold
clearly
on,
want to
hold on.
explore racism.
Yes, I understand that, and I actually found out why the story turned in that direction. So Damon Lindelof, when he was preparing for the show, he had read Ta-Nehisi Coates' Case for Reparations, which was an essay that was in an essay in the Atlantic, and he didn't know about the Tulsa event either. He didn't know about it before he read this, because Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about Black Wall Street and he talks about the event, and he decided that that's where he wanted to take this story, right? But I don't really feel like Rorschach provided any sort of subtext for a group like the 7th Cavalry to kind of martyrize him, right? Or like to kind of like get behind it, like to use his image as a face for their group. And it's just not justified. It's not earned at this point.
So
for me, first of all, it's the first episode, so we don't know enough about it at all to make like sort of overall judgments on whether this is right or wrong. We literally the end of the first episode was like, what the fuck just happened?
True.
But the whole race thing, I think that it's with Watchmen, what he's doing is he's commenting on these current times, and I think a really big issue is police brutality.
Yeah.
What rights police have, which is why we see the guns locked.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with race, and if you're starting it off in Tulsa, that's a big thing as well. And I do think that there is a legitimate reason for these Rorschach for the 7th Cavalry to be like that, because to them it could be like Rorschach was exposing us to this truth, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to expose the truth of this world, and people can twist any message and make it whatever the fuck they want. So for me, and I listened to like this podcast called Cults actually, which really deep dives into cults and how they're formed, and people can take the most like insignificant idea and create a whole world around that. So to me, may not be where I expected to go, but it's not 100% unbelievable for me to believe that it got there.
Sure.
Okay, but let me counter some of your points here. Not counter, but like let me address some of your points. So I do like the fact that it was this like kind of perversion of the Rorschach symbol. But the thing is, like, you can't, like, for me it does feel really unearned when they don't even take like an atom of what he believed in, so for it to be like misconstrued. They just literally took his, like, there was nothing about Rorschach that talked about race.
They might take us
yet,
there.
though.
They might take us there.
They kind of touch on it,
Yeah.
because Rorschach, his the last thing he says to Dan Dreisberg, Night Owl, in the movie is, in the book, he says, "Truth always, even in the face of Armageddon," right? Okay. So he's basically saying that, like, he's only motivated by the truth, right? And the sad thing is that the newspaper that he decided to subscribe to and drop his journal off to was a right-wing newspaper. However, in the previous world of the Watchmen, there's nothing to support the context that the frontier, what it's called, frontiermen or something like that. There's nothing to support the fact that there was any sort of racial bias inside the journalistic ethics of that paper.
And if they're trying to say that, like, right, that giving it to a right wing, like, journalists, giving the journal to like the right wing will lead to white supremacy, that's kind of crappy.
Well, it's not always, but the thing is, like, example, if you take a news story and you give it to CNN and you give it to Fox and you give it to NBC, you're getting like 3 different stories of the same news item.
Yeah,
and that's unfortunate.
But filtered differently.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna fill it in. I think they're gonna add
but like, we're very early on.
Yeah.
But like,
I just don't want them to turn him into a Hitler or anything weird like that, because it's just not justified. It's not earned.
Okay,
right?
so for me, like,
but even Hitler
hold on.
drew on legitimate people's ideas.
Sure, he did, but he also
they
wasn't.
They weren't supremacists.
But he also wasn't a superhero in the context of his past.
No, but so I don't think Rorschach will be the Hitler. The people who are taking his ideas are the Hitler.
But he could be very easily turned into a Hitler.
I don't think
that's the problem.
We like, this is literally like the first episode, so I can understand it being like, oh, like if they're doing this 100%, and I do think that this white supremacy is an aspect of this group, but I think with it getting such, like, with the lithium batteries, with the doomsday clock, that there's another bigger picture around this, and we might understand how this group was formed and why they did like the White Knight, which was basically the killing of all these like cops.
And they might be a splinter of some other group. Who knows?
There's one part of the story that's kind of making me wonder if there's more to the perception that the Cavalry has of of the African American population, and that's because they haven't used any language that's particularly historically racist, right? There hasn't been any N-words, there hasn't been anything, and that could easily be put into that show very easily, right? They only refer to them, like, I definitely heard the filth word, which is gross, and it's very fucking racist, but there's nothing that makes me think that it's being driven by racial differences. It's like there's something that makes me think that there's more to how the African American community is related to the police, or vice versa, also, because all the cops are, majority of them are African American. The entire department is almost African American.
Is that right?
I don't know. Maybe it could be.
100%.
I know that I saw like 2 for sure.
I mean, the police chief is white.
Police chief's white, right?
But they did. So they didn't use like obviously any of those words. They used the word, I think, in like the message they got.
They used black filth, which was horrible.
They used that.
But,
they also said like something about like whores and race traders.
Yes.
In like the video, which
They
I
did
think
say
was
race
just
traders,
targeting
yeah.
like everybody.
Yeah.
And then something about like, I swear I heard something about them saying like liberal tears, like, or something on the terms of that. I don't remember.
And you guys realize that was actually Rorschach's words twisted. Like the last words, like Rorschach actually says that in his journal, in the Watchmen movie and in the book, when he's writing in his journal, and they took the horrors and something else. There was horrors and something else, and it was filth and something else. And they kind of modified the wording to fit their agenda, right? So,
see, when I first saw the 7th Cavalry, like my initial reaction is I rolled my eyes, and I'm like, oh no, like this could very, very easily just fall into propaganda. And I'm like, oh man. So I definitely think that like they're not guilty of this, and because they did it in a way that like fits the story a lot. Like I did like the way they did it, but like my initial reaction was like, oh shit, they're gonna do white supremacy. So there's no room for ambiguity now, because now it's like so the cops misunderstanding their motives could have been something cool, but when they sent their tape and they're just like white supremacists, and I'm just like, oh fuck, like there's no nuance to their
That tape was like a bit, yeah, that they just like sent.
And it's like there's so like Rorschach had so many philosophies to his character that could have been misconstrued in such an interesting way, and they went with white supremacy, and it was just like because Rorschach was like, you're corrupt, I'm gonna punish you in every way that I can. There's so many strong like, oh, is he right with this? Like he's going about this the wrong way, but he's like philosophically right about something. They could have done something like that, but they went with white supremacy, which had no room for like, you know, justifiable cause.
So here's my question, because like we obviously know there's like that white supremacist part, but there's also part of like hating cops and essentially hating authority.
Yeah.
Because they had that thing called the White Knight, and they went and they shot cops, and I don't think they just, like Regina King's character was shot, but there was other cops as well that were like part of that attack that had died. And I think her kids that are adopted, I read somewhere, are like kids of like cops that had died or something like that, and
That's
she
cool.
adopted because you know, you look at them like they don't really, you know what I mean, they could have obviously been adopted. But so there's that and I wonder if Christina has this point of, depending on like what faction you're in, it's even more so, because maybe it's in Tulsa, so it's like even more so because of like the Redfordations, which we'll end up talking about.
Redfordations.
Yeah, which I love that.
Yeah.
Like that little wordplay.
I love that historically just that happened. I love that.
Yeah. So I wonder, because there's definitely more to them.
That's a good point, because if they just went with like, we don't trust cops, and it's more about like the gray areas and the dark areas of justice, and this Rorschach group, 7th Cavalry, was playing off that's one thing. But like, it's very definitive where you stand when you're white supremacist, right?
100%, yes.
So like, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like now they're just relegated to just like the bad guys, and there's no, I don't know.
But here's the thing, I do
agree that it's like low hanging fruit. Like they could have done something way better than
I don't know if like, so obviously like they are not good people, but I think, and I can understand that if they removed sort of the tag of white supremacy, we would have, some people would be more likely to sort of deep dive and understand them, because oftentimes when you hear that word, it kind of stops, and it's understandable why your mind would kind of stop, because it's like, someone claims to be that, you're like, what valid arguments can this person really have if that's their mindset? But with them and with Rorschach's journal, I think it'd be interesting to see how this came to be, and I wonder if we'll see like the formation of it, because we know we're gonna get characters coming back, like Dr. Manhattan, obviously, and Ozymandias is like freaking somewhere with like these weird robot people who are like giving them.
We need to talk about that scene separately.
What? That's so weird. When we'll talk about that. But I do wonder.
Okay, so let's put a hold on 7th Cavalry. What do we think about the cops? Police department.
I think it's so interesting that their guns are locked, and that Panda
that was really cool.
Was like, well, are you sure? Are you 100% sure? Like,
and I
whatever.
love how he's like not in support of the cops. Like he seems very level-headed, and that scene really kind of showed the chief in a different light, because he was like, "You're mistaken about this," and me as the audience believed Panda when he said that, right? Like he seemed like he was in the right in that.
Panda
in that
seemed like the right 100% when he said like.
And the chief looked like he was like hungry or something.
Like he wanted
right?
this to happen. Like he wanted the vigilantes to get their guns and to do whatever.
Yeah.
Or like the cops.
You know, if he didn't die, I would start spitting theories.
You just call the cops vigilantes?
Not the vigilantes and the cops, because like the character like
Red Scare is a vigilante.
Red Scare.
Yeah, and then Sister Night.
I mean, technically.
And Looking Glass. Yeah.
Oh, is he? Is he not a cop?
Well, okay.
He looks like a detective.
Red Scare, I think, is a detective too.
Oh, is it? I thought it was a vigilante.
I think Sister Night is a detective. She has a badge.
She was a detective, but they are like vigilantes.
But she's still rocking a badge, though.
She's still rocking a
I have not seen a badge on Red Scare.
I don't think I saw a badge on Red Scare.
I think he's a full blown vigilante.
But I thought it was interesting that the gun was locked in, and how that's, and especially with like the issues with like cops in like America and stuff, that in this like alternate world, like they need even permission. So we live in Canada, which is like we have different gun laws, and it's a little bit more strict in terms of like cops using guns. Like obviously you can pull your gun, but you do have to like fill out all these kind of reports. But I know in the States there's been more issues around the other thing. So the fact that like he has to sort of radio in, and then this is the thing, because the reason that the guns get free is because this guy gets like shot up, and then all of a sudden, like now the chief seems to have a reason to let people use their guns.
And it's Panda that did that. That like kind of it jammed, right? But I don't think Panda like did it on purpose. I think the chief may have. I think the chief may have jammed it so that now they have an excuse for Article 4 or whatever the fuck the article.
So there was a historical event that occurred in this world that left the two kids as orphans. Yeah, and then so it must have something to do with that. I think. Like,
yeah, the 7th Cavalry raided all the cop homes and killed all the cops as much as they can, and now the cops were forced to wear masks and
like the yellow masks. Some wear yellow masks, and then like I guess the detectives get like really cool get-ups. Which is fun.
But I think we're going to learn more about that and like how it happened and why and what impact.
Yeah, I feel like I hope this show starts off every episode with a flashback. I'm down for that.
That's what Lindelof does, man.
But yeah, it's like
I
Lost.
think it will have to. I think there's so much that we don't know.
Lindelof is all about flashbacks.
Yeah. So
and it looks like he's going to tie in a lot of history too. Sorry.
So I did feel like the whole locking up the guns thing was just like you can see, like I love how complete this world is, because you can see them saying like, oh, so our cops are hooded. So what's to stop them from shooting everyone? Exactly. Oh, okay, we'll lock their guns up. But it's like at the same time, like you can get that letter scene where the guy just gets shot because his gun doesn't get freed up, right?
Exactly.
It's like so.
Yeah, but
because you're supposed to pull a weapon when you're in danger, right? So now you're taking away their ability to do that.
Like in a split second. Yeah.
I think one of the things that everybody's kind of glancing over is that we're living in a very liberal world in this world, right? Robert Redford is the president, right? And he transitioned from Nixon to Redford. It's going to be a completely different place, right? And if you look at the two groups, like let's look at when Sister Night goes to pick up that guy, right? One of the suspected 7th Cavalry guys.
Before getting any intel to do so.
Right. It's
like
a trailer,
which was fucked.
It's a trailer park.
Because they're vigilantes.
Right?
The cops act like vigilantes. They're Batman. They do what they want.
Right. But it's a trailer park, right? Yeah. And it looks like that anybody who believed in Nixon or was a follower of Nixon, like there's actually a part of town called Nixonville, right? And that's where most of these 7th Cavalry guys live. So what I think we're seeing at play here is that the liberal agenda has gotten to the point where it's completely government run. Like it's the cops are connected to the government because what's his face is on the phone with the senator talking to the senator about that shooting. That normally does not happen.
Yeah.
A police chief doesn't get on the phone with a senator of a state and go, hey, you know what? We had a shooting with a cop. Like, that's usually not what happens, right? So I think what we're seeing is that Redford's been president so long that the liberal agenda has stretched so far that the groups like the 7th Cavalry are the economically more challenged people when they used to be the more economically powerful people under Nixon. So I think that we're seeing kind of a switch, and I think it's a big part of why the cops. One, I think the gun thing, I think that's completely liberal. That was a liberal idea, right? Because like
gun controls historically.
Who inside a police station is going to go, you know what? Instead of wearing guns on our hips, let's put them in fucking electronic holders. Yeah. That's definitely a government thing.
It's
right?
Obviously it's a government thing.
Yeah.
And in this world, there is something that has led to that being the case.
Yeah, we don't know
whether
what
that's
is.
like, obviously we saw the flaws of it very close up when it got jammed and he could not pull it.
Right.
And then he ended up getting shot and surviving. Man, that guy can really
I know, like
survive.
how many shots did he fucking tank?
Yeah.
But all the wealthy people are living, or our cops, like all the cops have great homes. Looks like they all have great houses. Looks like they all have great lives. Looks like they all have, they're economically well off, right? And then we see the arts and culture community within this community as well when they go to see that play of Oklahoma, right? And there's a lot of African Americans in that audience too. So I think that the liberal agenda has gone so far where they're almost like the white people have actually become a minority in this world.
You said liberal agenda like 5
I
times.
know. That's what it is. It's a liberal, like
I think something happened to the white people.
Well, I don't think anything happened to I think there's like a mix
could
of
be
people,
true,
but
but
I don't know.
We don't have enough data.
Yeah,
I don't
we
think.
really
like,
don't.
Just because she attacked.
we don't, but there's a lot of little hints to it. You know what I mean?
For me, I'm just
That's
praying.
the way I'm seeing it right
yeah.
now.
Oh yeah. Like you definitely are pulling on a thread that definitely could be a part of that sweater.
And Lindelof would do something like that.
But
Part of that sweater.
Okay, so I just hope that like they I mean I should hope that they do like address how the cops have like impunity essentially. Like they don't have guns, but she can like bust down a door and like punch somebody with a rosary. First of all, wow.
Yeah.
Like brass
Let's
knuckle
just talk about
rosaries.
Regina K for a second.
Oh no,
Damn.
we're gonna talk about her at length for sure.
I like that. That was
But
cool.
like she can like bust down a door and drag somebody, and it's like this like obviously I'm not gonna draw a lot of parallels to like the real world, but I'm afraid that it's this kind of like what is that like the
means justify the end?
Antifa like mentality where it's like punch a Nazi. It's like if they're on the other side, you could just punch them. It's justified. It's like I hope they address that and not just like it's the way of life.
Well, this is what made me think about this show, showing like different shades of what is good or right or what it. Because when I saw that act, when she like went, she's like, "Well, I knew you were gonna do that." Like, it's like what justifies the ends there, and even I felt like being like that. That obviously is not how law works, and we go back to that quote where at the very beginning where it's like the little boy is repeating that line like, it'll be justice, not like a mob rule or whatever, but like what is mob rule? And I think it's one thing that really got to me, that I thought was interesting. I don't know if you guys thought it was interesting. So Captain like Judd Crawford, Don Johnson's character, he's the captain, but he doesn't cover his face. So like everyone knows who he
that
is.
interesting
that
too.
was so
And he's
weird.
like the only, like he's the one who's like the top, right?
I
And
think
he's-
they needed someone to do that.
like they need someone
Like
to
a
be
face,
which
an
is why
actual
when he's
face.
leaving his house to go to that thing, there's like he has like all these guards and stuff, and so which makes me think this is another like inside job as well. Like there's definitely like there's people who have infiltrated from the 7th Cavalry for sure into this organization, into the cops, and we're gonna see like a deeper dive in that. And I think a lot of these 7th Cavalry members, and this is just me sort of guessing, we were gonna see are going to be pawns for this like greater powers like motives. Like they
Without a doubt.
created these pawns.
Yeah, and I
Without a
don't
doubt.
feel like the cops are going to be the good guys either because they
Yeah,
don't
for
act
sure.
like
I should
good
hope
guys.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should
They don't
hope
act
not.
like good guys. They do all this like sketchy shit, just like what we said about her like going and capturing the guy before she even knew that she was supposed to do that.
They
She just
fucking,
did that.
even in the
fucking
beginning-
blew up that plane. They
Yeah.
didn't try and
Or
get
even
to
a-
land.
yeah,
They
even the
fucking
scene-
blew it up.
Even in the
Yeah.
beginning, like the cop happened to be right because that guy
Yeah.
was a terrorist, but like before you knew that, like he was already treating him guilty, right?
I was
like,
about to bring that up too.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
he already had an idea in his mind, and like
It's
because
very
he was, I
reminiscent.
think because
It's
he
very
was
much on
white.
the other side,
yeah,
though.
Yeah,
very
they
reminiscent of a
flipped
white
it. They
cop
flipped
standing
it.
over
It's
a
a
black
flip.
driver.
100%.
They did that
They're
on
flipping the
purpose,
dynamics,
yeah.
right?
Actually-
And that's why I think that this
I
liberal
hope it'll leave somewhere,
storyline, this idea where you know they called the blue wave, right? It was called the blue wave in the show, right? The blue wave.
I mean,
where,
that exists like in American, like whenever like they get the
Sure.
Democratic vote. Yeah.
Sure, but you know they eliminated term limits for presidents, right? So Nixon was in office like four terms in a row or
They
some
said
shit.
4, I think.
Right.
No, they said so
was a
something like that.
lot.
Doesn't matter.
Right, and Redford was going on his 7th or some shit.
Yeah.
So you know,
Like at that point, it's
you
an
have no idea what could
authoritarian
happen.
government.
You have no idea what could happen, right? Like we can't, you can't sit there and unequivocally say just because a government is liberal doesn't mean that it's not going to become corrupt. Doesn't mean that it's not going to
I
become
don't think
that's what we're
anyone's saying
gonna
that. I think
explore.
government in itself
Right.
will always have corruption,
Right.
unfortunately.
So I think Lindelof is painting the picture of a world where a liberal government has become authoritarian.
Yeah. I definitely.
And they're using the
I
cops
definitely
as
see
a
that.
vanguard.
I definitely see
They're
that.
using
Yeah.
the cops as a vanguard.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I'm seeing it. You know what? I
So
hope
I
we
just-
get to see the cops in other cities too.
I just
'Cause then,
wish-
like, we can't just limit it to Oklahoma. But
Yeah. I just wish that the 7th, the opposition of that was just like a little bit more room for ambiguity and not just like white supremacy.
Yeah.
Because now, like, don't get me wrong, I would love it if both the 7th Cavalry and the cops were bad guys. I love stories like that. Like,
that's where I feel like this is
Troy is
going.
one of those stories where it's like the main character is Achilles, but he's on the wrong side. He's on the evil side, and I love those kinds of stories.
When
But
Paris
like,
comes
I don't know
in.
why I brought that. I don't know.
I just love talking about Troy.
I just had like an idea, like an example in my head. But so yeah, like that. There's an example of like those kinds of stories, and I love how. I would love it if both of them are bad guys, but like give me more depth for both factions. I think is what I'm kind of wishing for, and I'm not saying that there's no room for that. I'm just saying that you kind of like you shot yourself in the foot in the first episode by claiming white supremacy.
I don't know
But
if
we'll
they
see
did.
if-
I'm
we'll see.
excited to see like where this kind of goes off, and then I think
sure.
we've talked a lot about like 7th Cavalry and the white supremacy and stuff, but also this whole doomsday clock and the ticking and that calling back. Like there's that scene when they're in the dinner and it looks like a clock.
Looks
It's
like a
funny
clock,
when they
yeah.
do
Yeah.
the
Or an
overhead.
eye.
Yeah.
Or
Some people say eye.
oh, interesting. Well, the thing is also
Also
like
the crack. Can we
the
address
crack.
that?
I know it was like, man, there's children.
There's another like sign that dude's like fucking corrupt as fuck. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
like
that's
obviously.
sketchy.
I like how it's like Regina's like, hey, like just rub your nose, and his wife is even
crack,
aware.
It was cocaine.
Oh, whatever, man.
Crack cocaine.
No,
You know,
it
it
was
was
on
a
drugs.
Crack
drug.
and cocaine are very different things. Very different things.
Well,
Take it for
clearly we don't do either. So
Neither do I.
Frank.
What the fuck?
But either way, the way that the thing that I found really interesting about that scene, like other than this whole like singing, which was like really interesting, and it'd be really
Well, he was on cocaine.
yeah,
so.
that's true.
And the fact
But
that-
was-
Oh yeah, that was cocaine. You're right.
Yeah, he was singing the bad guy part, but not only that was the TikTok. You heard the TikTok, and I was like, "What's happening?
Oh,
Someone's gonna die."
In my head,
Someone's
I'm like,
gonna die.
he's dead. He's fucking dead. Like
I thought he was
you
gonna
don't
die
think a
right
clock-
then.
Well, yeah, obviously I didn't think he was gonna die there, but I'm like, one of these two are dead. Obviously not Regina King. So this motherfucker's dead. Okay, so death scene. Do we think that that escapee from Tulsa massacre, that old man, is part of the 7th Cavalry? Because there's no clues to that.
I don't know if he's okay. So here's the thing. The thing that's really interesting to me, and I think it's when you brought up the
Oh,
sort
first
of
of all,
symbolism
yeah.
of like the first and last scene, is that he has now become the sheriff that he wanted to do, and he's taking down this bad sheriff.
Yeah.
Right? He definitely like. There's no way he like did that himself because he is wheelchair.
I don't know. You guys missed that line. You guys missed a very obvious.
Yeah.
Wait,
Can
what'd
I
he
lift
say?
200
Can I
pounds?
lift 200 pounds?
Yeah, he did say
Guys,
that.
He
You
was
know
planning
this.
that.
You know
That's
the
really scared me.
scene-
Oh my gosh, I'm scared.
You know the scene that was like historical with the guy on the horse.
Yeah.
Do we think that that's going to lead us into the history of the 7th Cavalry?
Okay, it's good that you brought that up. Actually, let's get right into that scene then. First of all, before we get into that scene, there's a newspaper. I'm sure you guys all picked it up, but there's a newspaper claiming that Ozymandias, I'll just say his name, whatever way I want to, is dead.
Yeah.
So
Adrian Veidt.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it could mean a lot of things. Obviously, like he could have faked his death. He could have it could be a flashback, that scene with him there. It could just not even be him. He never said his name really. But I think we can rule
Everyone's
that one out.
assuming it's
Yeah, we can rule
him.
that one out. IMDb says it's him.
Yeah.
At least.
And if IMDb says it, it has to be true. I'm 100% serious. This is not sarcasm.
No, for sure.
Yeah, that scene was real weird. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, you're you're not wearing clothes. Well, this is interesting.
Yeah,
that was weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions I think they wanted us to ask. But,
they definitely seem like robots, 100%.
Yeah.
Robots, okay.
Like the maids and stuff, they don't seem, they're too...
Yeah, they don't know, like, human things.
They're trying to be human.
Yeah.
They could just be subservient too, right? Like,
I mean, a horseshoe though.
Yeah, that was weird. That, like, you know what? If
the
I was
honeycomb and the horseshoe thing, like, what does that mean?
Yeah, that was weird. That was weird.
All of it.
Did you notice the cake matched Ozymandias' costume in the comic books?
I mean, the colors at least.
Yeah, the same colors. Yeah.
The other thing he mentioned, he was writing like a play, and then those two people were gonna like star in it.
Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah. So actually, I
whole
didn't
scene
know
made
this.
no sense to me.
Yeah, it was supposed to make you ask a lot of questions for sure. But the play's name was The Watchmaker's Son, which is Dr. Manhattan because his father is a watchmaker. And you know that the pocket watch is I think is the one that he was reaching for in that experiment that turned him into that turned him into Dr. Manhattan. Remember, he went back into the chamber because he left that pocket watch and then he got fucking blasted.
And it was broken. He broke it and his people fixed it for him. So this seems okay. It seems
there's a lot of like watch things.
There is. Yeah. There's like the watch batteries and all that shit too.
And then the funny thing is when they're mentioning the watch battery. So one thing we haven't talked about yet, this scene is the scene when they go to this like cattle farmhouse or whatever.
And ranch.
Ranch.
Okay, never mind.
Ranch.
No, you're right. I was thinking of Ozymandias. No, you're right.
Oh, sorry. Do we want to stay on Ozymandias?
No. Natural segues.
That scene where, first of all, I was like, damn, those
the
cows.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh my gosh. But the thing is, the music in that scene, oh my goodness, it had like this 80 like Blade Runner kind of vibe that I loved. And then Regina King in that scene just sort of like going through, and it just felt so
nice,
real, like the way that was shot. And the thing that I really like is that like the lighting was done really well as well, so you could still like see them and just the whole
notes, Game of Thrones. Like, you gotta see the fucking...
Well, they were their opponents were using floodlights. That's the only reason everything got lit so well, right?
Yeah, but even before that, when they're like kind of weaving through, but yeah, the floodlights definitely helped. But that scene for me was amazing. Like it was just such a cool scene to see, and I think the director, I think it was Nicole Cassell, that's her name, just did like an amazing job. But when we go there and we're at this scene and they get the floodlights going because they know there's an intruder and they're collecting these batteries, and all of a sudden we see like this owl ship, and you're like, how did they get possession of this?
Yeah.
Also, like, they got these machine guns and they're killing the cows, like, legit.
You know what was weird is every time they shot a cow, a chunk of it fell off. Why do you think you can hide behind that thing?
I mean,
like, she was hiding behind that fucking cow.
It was getting
it'll
every
time
that
bullet.
thing got shot.
It'll take the bullet for
you.
you.
But you saw chunks of it fly off and stop existing.
The cow's not gonna it's not gonna be a brick wall forever.
No, but it helped. It could help.
No, she was
like
really low. Like and it felt like super intense, like super. Like scary for her because she was like really low to the ground and
And then the fight scene when they go into the house, as well, I thought was really cool. But I think how do you think they got in possession of that ship? Like,
well, because Night Owl was the original Night Owl was a cop,
ex-cop,
right. So
most of them were. I think.
That for all we know, and like I don't think there's anything in the comic books that add any context to this, but. The owl ship could be a design that was made by the police.
Yeah.
For all we know.
It could be.
Right?
Sure.
Like, that could be why the Night Owl had one, right? But you never know. Like, could be anything. But I think the one thing we got to take away from this scene is that these guys are well fucking financed, too.
100%.
They had security systems. They had floodlights.
They had an airplane.
They had an anti-aircraft gun. Like, shit, dude. Like, they had a plane. Yeah, they didn't have a helicopter.
Whatever,
but yeah, they're obviously well financed, right? Mm-hmm. So... There's got to be some figureheads of power behind these guys,
and they have some like dope ass mental fortitude to like take a suicide pill, like a cyanide pill. Like they believe in their ideology a lot. So there's got to be some like, and obviously like there's some secrets that they need. I mean, the first guy did break, but I mean, like any organization that would take a cyanide pill, you should be afraid of, because like you know what I mean. Like they have some
you're like
vitriol.
putting your life on the line, Like
That's why I think that this dichotomy between between liberal thinking people and conservative thinking people is going to be a big part of this show.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because like maybe the world's gotten so bad for conservative thinking people that like it's it's do or die, right?
Well, yeah,
it's do or die time.
But I would move
I don't know.
the white supremacist away from conservative thinking people, because that's like a whole, like, white supremacy is a whole extreme part of it. And oftentimes we do see it in it's true, ultra conservative people, but there are still like conservative people that are just conservative and
Right.
don't fall into that line.
And
But
I
they could
hope-
be tied to that world too, for all we know.
So I hope nobody draws that conclusion, because that would be really shitty. But I do think that like this show is about taking the extremes to both, but like what Frank said,
Yeah.
which is and I do hope that like nobody thinks that like conservatives are all white supremacists, because that'd be pretty fucked up, right?
Yeah, that would be fucked up.
I think it's going to explore the idea of taking them both too far.
To the extremes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
In this
also,
world, that like
it seems that it came to a point where there's kind of no middle ground. Everybody's kind of really extreme in their views. So
Well, the kid's the middle ground when he says like, no mob justice today,
yeah, I feel
by
like
the
kids
law,
can't
right?
count though.
No, I know. I'm
So-
not. I'm saying figuratively. I'm
Yeah.
saying that's the middle point in terms of the structure of
So there's a lot of
the
tension.
thematic structure,
There's
right?
gonna be a lot of tension between all the adults, I think. So
Yeah. And if we're talking about kids, we can sort of, I know we're kind of jumping around the episode, and this is something farther back, is when Regina King's character, I think her name is Angela, right?
Sister Knight,
Yeah.
Angela.
Sister
yeah.
Knight, but she's like in
Angela
that classroom.
Abraham.
And she's teaching them how to like make moon cakes, because she lived in Vietnam, and her child, I think Topher, is like in that class. And like they ask she like tells them what the white knight. I'm like, man, you're getting like real deep. These kids are.
Tells her
very
how she
young."
got shot.
By
and
the
got
way-
her
oh yeah, the
guts cut
teacher was
out,
signaling at her like,
yeah,
stop.
yeah. Did you guys see the eggs? The
Oh,
happy
100%.
face?
Yes.
Yeah.
What did you see?
The
The
happy,
happy
face.
face.
No,
with
but
the
like
egg
at the
yolk.
corner of the one eye there's a
The
red
red
piece.
mark,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was like, interesting symbolism with it. Anyways, so back to Ozymandias, in that scene. So here's what I'm thinking. Why do you think? My question is, why do you think there's a newspaper that says he's dead? So my thinking is, sorry,
go.
but let me answer first, and then you can answer. If I was gonna start, I don't know, a conspiracy or a defense against the doomsday clock, my step one is make sure everybody thinks I'm dead, make sure I'm not a target. So like, and this play thing that he's doing, I feel like it's like he's
It'll
not
be
writing
real.
a play. I think he's like writing some like plan to
100%.
Like, yeah. So do you think he's like, so you think it's fake death?
A fake death for sure. And I think it's like what you said. I think he doesn't want to be involved with it. And I think for the next chapter of his story, I'm doing quotes. If you guys can't see me, obviously you can. If you did, it'd be creepy. But if I'm doing quotes for this, for the next chapter in his story, he needs to not be around. He cannot be like the one shepherding it, because it's, there's already these people who like doubt him. And then from there, like, he's like, YouTube will star. I think we're gonna see these like weird humans like star in it, like his servants or of things. But I'm kind of on the same page there.
Maybe he's a bad guy and he's orchestrating the plot of whatever. I don't know. He's gonna be a villain in this.
That's going to
maybe.
be a big jump, because like his motivations in the book and in the movie is to do whatever's necessary to save humanity.
People
From-
can see that
Which
as
can
villainous.
be villainous.
No, I know,
So maybe
but
he's gonna do
So
something.
actually, I wanted to bring
Maybe
this
he's gonna
up.
be pulling some strings, orchestrating something.
maybe.
So
kind of like Vate.
It's a good thing that you brought this up,
Maybe.
because I wanted to like explore the differences between Ozymandias' character in the movie and in the comic book, because in the comic book he was way more broken that he had to complete his plan than he was in the movie. In the movie he was this like cold, calculated, like super genius that was like this is just logic, this is just math, this is just numbers, I'm saving the world. But like he wasn't really broken up about it. But in the book he was like, he martyred his own morals to do this, and he actually like, he was actually way more broken. So like I definitely like that character in the comic book a lot more, because it showed like a little bit more of a human side. He'll never relent from doing the greater good, of course, because that's his whole thing. So I do think that like I do agree that if he's just turned into a bad guy, I'd be like very disappointed, because those characters that are just like, I do evil things because like the end result is preferable, is like way more interesting. I don't know.
I guess and this, it might be hard to like maybe categorize people on this show as good or bad, essentially, because like Christina said, like some of like the actions he does can be seen as villainous to people. Obviously, to like Rorschach, he did not agree with that message at all, and he had his own reasons.
I definitely don't
that.
think he's a bad guy. Yeah,
but I don't know what he is. I know he's a guy who likes to get his thighs massaged while he's sitting naked.
Typing.
It's also a very like big room, so I'm like, that's very drafty. Like it's very cool. Like, you know what I mean?
You know, somebody pointed out actually that there's no computers anywhere.
So that's the other thing,
right? Like he's typing on a typewriter.
That's why
like
I thought
it could
was
just
the past.
It's
I
like a
didn't think
weird-
it
it's
was
like-
current.
it's present day.
it's
like,
present day, but it's a weird alternate
reality.
future
Yeah.
where they have electric cars, they don't have gas
Yeah,
cars,
yeah.
and they don't really have cell phones either. So that while there have been advances, and I think probably because the only really like magical person in this, or you can sort of say is like supernatural, is Dr. Manhattan. Other than that, there's like not really a character that you could really say is like really like that. And I think with Dr. Manhattan, he's might have like changed sort of the course of nature
Here's my problem though. So
or of history. Sorry, I meant.
so like kind of like the divergent of timelines happened in the Cold War in the 80s, but like the first kind of the first start of discovering computers happened in World War II, with like the breaking of Enigma and like that was like the first whatever. So like I don't see how this separate timeline could stop that.
I don't know. Okay, so maybe they might. I don't know if there are not any computers. There could still be
There
computers.
was a computer in the Watchmen film.
But there,
Okay, yeah, so-
Ozymandias is like one of those like
So it could
hipsters.
just be just
like
not
he's like
showed
real
in here.
hipster. So he's like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
use a typewriter. Not that like we've actually all used typewriters.
It's probably just like an observation that like it probably doesn't mean anything.
Well, I think we have to start entertaining the idea that there's some sort of utopic ideal in this world.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah.
remember, okay, so in the book, the end is nigh is the sign that's seen all the time with Rorschach, right? Or Walter Kovacs. And the first sign that I see, the first placard I see in this show is everything. I think it said everything is great or everything is amazing. And it had like bright coloring and everything. It was just a guy celebrating life. He's like, oh, fuck, life's awesome. This is great.
I miss
Right.
that.
And he did that by, he did that when Angela was going to her bakery, which I don't know if you guys noticed, but is actually
okay.
in Black Wall Street. Literally on the same street, just off the same street as where all the carnage
and
was
Will
going
Reeves,
I didn't
that
notice
man, Will Reeves is still sitting there,
down. Yeah,
waiting for that shop to open.
yeah. And then
Oh,
he asks if
man.
she can lift 200 pounds.
Yes,
And they asked her if he can lift 200 pounds. So before we jump in any more segments, I think we got to go through the cast, man, because the cast looks pretty awesome, and kind of talk about the characters.
We should spend a lot of time on Sister Night, for sure.
Okay.
So what do we all think of Regina King?
Okay, so my first thought is, I love Regina. I love Regina King as an actress, but I think she was a little too old for this role.
She's 48.
Don't kill me.
Batman.
They're
Ben
adopted
Affleck is like
kids.
47 and he plays Batman. Regina King could kick your ass any day of the week, Frank.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not.
I
I'm
definitely
not.
didn't have a problem with her age. She
I
was my favorite character.
I
in
just think
this.
the character could have been cast a little bit younger. I just didn't believe her as an active. Maybe down the road I'll see more, but at this point I just don't believe her as an active vigilante. I don't.
I felt the complete opposite. I
don't.
thought she was amazing. I love Regina King in general. I thought
I
her
just said I
casting
did too. Jesus Christ.
I'm not. No, this is me
Okay,
talking. I was
okay.
like, I love her in general and like most things, but I
Yeah,
really loved her in this show.
Wait, so you had a problem with her age, but not the old man who was the chief of the police?
He's not a vigilante though.
He's old.
He's
That
not-
guy was
he's
really
not
Don
a
old.
Johnson?
Yeah.
He's a chief of police.
Okay,
he's
but
not.
he was old.
He's not running out fucking
No, but
karate kicking people in
what
the
he was
face.
saying, what he was saying was that, like she's kicking down doors,
Yeah,
punching people
but
with
like,
groceries.
I just didn't believe the power
I
and-
will say
and-
that there's
and the
other
expertise.
movies
I
with
just
like
didn't
people
believe it.
of that age, like kicking. Like I don't think 48 is that old
think
to
it's that
be
old.
a vigilante, but I don't know. For me, I really liked her in this role. I especially I like seeing sort of the difference between her being this mother and then her being like this like vigilante and sort of the two sides of that as well, because she is like this like loving mother. And then you have these scenes where she's like, hiding behind cattle and like I think she also has the chops to pull off a really dynamic role. Like she recently just won an Oscar, but she's
a
done
great
like
actress.
Oscar-worthy performances. But she won one for If Beale Street Could Talk last year, and so just the two kind of sides of her character she's playing. I think she can play figuring out. Like, I think she's going to be the one who's sort of going to start unraveling this mystery because her friend is now dead and she's going to try to get to the bottom of what happened. And I think she's going to play that really well.
Yeah. Christina?
So I didn't have a problem with her age. She was probably the one I liked best.
Christ. How about just say, I really liked her? Instead of like, I didn't have a problem with her age.
I don't know. I don't know if I really liked her. Just the whole thing was kind of slow for me. But so far she's my favorite.
Oh,
person that
okay.
they brought
Wait,
up.
maybe I should ask, did you like the show?
I don't know. I feel like it has potential. I have to see where it goes.
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
like,
So you're on the fence.
yeah, I'm on the fence about
Okay,
it.
cool.
That was a slow show
It was
for you.
hard for me to get through the first episode.
Wow.
Well, yeah, everybody has opinions.
Interesting take.
So, for Regina King, yeah, I mean, like, I liked her whenever she doesn't have a mask on. I think, like, I don't know. Actually, I kind of like the trench coat. The hood is a little much, but, so what I wanted to see more was in the opening, in her first scene, when she was like going off on a tangent, talking about like how she was shot, and she was like, she clearly had like some kind of trauma with her being shot, and like she didn't pick up social cues to like stop talking about it, and it felt like there was like a weird character quirk there that never appeared again, and I want to see where that kind of goes, because after that she was kind of just like wise and she just knew everything, and like in the car talking to her son, right, Toby Topher, and she had like these really good insights. Like I like that line, like, no, he's not a racist, but he's off to a good start. Like that was
great.
a really cool
Yeah.
line.
That was great.
But
And the bleach line, like he smells like bleach. I was like,
yeah, I smell a 7th Cavalry like bleach or something, right?
Yeah.
So like I don't know, like I kind of like the opening scene of her kind of not fitting in social cues, instead of her being like completely wise and just like has all these like insights in things. I just want them to explore that side of her more, like that trauma side.
Yeah, I think they
We'll see.
will, because like
I do think so too.
because I think she's gonna try to be like, hey, what? Like I think she's gonna start like unraveling like this whole thread, as you said so eloquently before, Chris.
The thread of the sweater. Anyways, so in that scene with her like foot on the desk was a little much for me, because it was like that scene while I was watching it was pretty good. Like her foot's on the desk and she's like all badass, and the guy tells her to put her boots down, and she refuses. But then you see them like a scene later and they're like so casual with each other. I'm like,
I think that's
looking
casual
back
too,
at
because
that-
she could only do that if you're like friends with someone.
Right, but it's like you like, what are you trying to like intimidate this dude who's like your friend at the same? I don't know, it just didn't really fit.
Yeah.
And I feel like that scene was just kind of like a way to establish that she's badass, but then gets turned around when like it completely discounts their relationship, like their type of the relationship dynamic.
And that has more to do with like the writing of it.
With the writing of it,
than
exactly.
the actual.
Yeah. I just like, she just weird character quirks that they need to like nail down. But anyways,
There was more cringe in that school scene than I think people notice, other than her telling her story about getting shot. She literally says, I need to separate the whites from the yellows, with like cultural Asian music playing in the background while she's wearing like Asian garb and talking about being
I like
from
that dress, by the way. That
being
was a
from
cool dress.
Saigon and being from Saigon.
Do you believe that she's from Saigon?
Yeah, I do.
It's a
Well,
state.
actually,
I think so.
No, it's a
yeah.
state for sure.
Well, she was there before it was a state.
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that could be possible.
No, I'm just wondering, like, her backstory. How much is it like set in stone?
Or
not.
I don't know.
I don't see why. Like, she was there when she was a baby. I don't know why that would be
Yeah.
a thing to lie about.
I'm sure there's lots of people trying to like mentally connect that other baby that the kid found
Yeah.
and being like, oh, no, obviously, like, probably time wise, that's not her, unless they like froze her in like for fucking 50 years, right? But like, there's probably somebody trying to make some sort of connection, whether that was her mother or something, or along
but that,
those
yeah,
lines.
it was 1921.
grandmother
But
or
who is
whatever.
that baby?
Yeah,
That's a very good
yeah,
question.
leader of-
yeah. Who is that baby? That's for sure. What did you guys think of Don Johnson
I like him.
playing? What's his name?
He was-
Judd Crawford.
Judd Crawford.
Judd Crawford.
I liked him a lot. Like I thought he was one of the more interesting characters because he like when he's talking to someone he like has a good relationship with, he's very trustworthy. But then when he does other things, there's like something underneath that surface, right? Like that scene in particular. First of all, like I'm really interested to see where the panda character is gonna go. I hope that he's a bigger.
I love Panda.
So we were talking,
I heart Panda.
We were talking off mic about Panda, and it's like we were saying you could cover your face with literally anything, and this dude picks like a DJ level like huge
I love it.
A furry.
furry head of a panda. I'm like, this dude, I like him already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so, anyways, going
cool
back
shit,
to
definitely.
Chief Judd Crawford. That scene, like I don't know about you guys, but he felt off in that scene.
Which scene?
The
first one?
Article 4, the Article 4
Oh
scene.
yeah, where Panda was like, "This is a mistake."
Yeah, you could tell like he had an agenda going in.
Like he wanted it.
But then every time he talks to a character like in a casual setting, you feel like you can trust them, right? Like you feel as an audience member, like when he was singing to her, when he was like hugging her and stuff, it's like this looks like a trustworthy character. But then when he's in like
But
a
there's
cop
weird,
mode,
yeah.
So I thought he was one of the more interesting ones, and then he dies.
Well, I think that's like where it comes in that nobody's gonna be all good and all bad. So like,
I didn't mean all good, bad. I just
Yeah,
meant like
no, but-
trustworthiness.
but I think what it is that he has some kind of ulterior motivation, or like maybe he just thinks that's the right thing to do, but other people are gonna disagree with him. And like we saw him in work mode versus like relaxed at home mode.
His
and
temperament
like,
never
different.
changed either. His
Yeah.
temperament, he was always cool, calm, and collected. He never like even when the other when
It
the
was
cop
just a
got
feel
shot.
about him,
Yeah, he didn't really like get mad. He didn't get angry. He didn't really show any emotion. It was like, I'm gonna go to the hospital. I'm gonna go see my guy. I'm gonna
That
put on my
scene was a
uniform.
little
And
weird.
yeah,
When he went to go see him, so like he has a charming sense of self.
Yeah.
I think he plays that really well because
Yeah.
he is kind of charming.
Yeah, he is.
yeah.
But that scene when he goes to go visit him for the first time, I don't know, something about like everything being so symmetrical and him going in. I
Yeah.
kept thinking like, is he gonna do something? Is he gonna kill this guy? I don't know why I kept thinking in my head that he was gonna try to orchestrate the death of this cop, right? Because like maybe he knew something or saw something, and that didn't end up being it. But I think you know how they kind of said it offhand, like, oh, we should call Angela or we should call this person. And he's like, no, we shouldn't. I'll tell her in the morning. And I don't know. I was like,
They
I
were
feel like
saying
there's
Red. They were saying you should tell Red or call Red
yeah,
because they work together, obviously,
true.
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and there was like when she got Little Bighorn, the code Little Bighorn, and she says, "Why did you tell me at 2 p.m. today?" There's something to that. Like
Yeah.
2
there's
p.m. is
something
late.
like there is something like he had to do before he told her, and in conjunction with the fact that like we said already, the last scene was like kind of like juxtaposed with the first scene of a corrupt cop being taken down by a black marshal. I think there's some corruption that she needs to find with this chief. It's almost as if like he had two different masks the whole time, and you don't know which one the real one was.
And
I
he
don't
was
know.
the only one who wasn't wearing one too, which was funny.
Yeah,
Like, a
exactly.
physical
Yeah,
one.
it's very.
But all in all, I liked his acting. Thought he was
Oh
great.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, Don Johnson's great.
Although you get out of your car and you see spikes, you don't go, oh fuck. I see spikes from far away. I fucking dip. Like, dude.
Yeah.
don't
I know. When every time, like in
walked-
these movies, when people get out of their car when shit goes down, I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
but when
crazy.
yeah, but when you're the police chief, like
Yeah, you have
you
to.
kind of have a sense of
Yeah.
confidence that like
Also, like
nothing bad's gonna happen
we
to
just
you, right?
said that like he was guarded 24/7.
Yeah.
And then he's driving home.
Yeah, so obviously he's
Oh.
got a sense of security.
The
that
wife said, "Take
most
someone
people
with
don't.
you or something."
Oh yeah.
and
That's
she
right.
was like, "He was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm good. I can go."
So
After his
Well,
bump,
I don't
after his
know.
bump of coke.
If you've ever been around during some kind of like disturbance or something, people gravitate towards the disturbance. So when there was the G20 protests in Toronto, I was downtown that day and everybody was trying to go take a picture of the cars on fire and shit. I'm like, don't go there. The horses are the riot police are on horseback going to there, creating barriers. I'm like, I'm going the other way. Screw you people.
Yeah.
People do tend to do that, but yeah, it just seemed as a police chief, like he could have just called, like, because it's not like he hit something. Someone literally put like spikes on the road.
They were waiting for him.
That so like obviously someone
Yeah.
should be out there for you.
Yeah.
And he was overly confident they got him.
Yeah.
So I think there is something to the first police officer, I forgot his name, whose gun
Sutton.
jammed.
Sutton.
Sutton.
Yeah, how-
Like his gun jamming, which directly led to Article 4 being instated. like which he definitely wanted to happen. So it's like, did he jam that? Like, because Panda definitely
maybe.
didn't jam that gun, right?
Maybe.
No,
Like,
Panda was
I don't think
yeah.
Panda's my boy.
I believe in it. I don't know. I do. I feel a weird kinship with
Me
Panda.
too. We saw him for like a scene.
I know. That's all I needed.
So like,
Was Panda the one who had to release the gun?
the
'Cause
guns,
yeah,
he's a
he was like
dispatch.
annoyed when the guy had to call Panda.
Because Panda's
Yeah.
harder.
Annoyed.
Like Panda's probably like more of a hard ass.
He's
I
more
don't think he's
stringent.
part of the police.
He's
I don't
more-
think he's part of the police. I think he's kind of like,
He's more strict.
you know, he's kind of like the HR of the company, who's kind of just like, you know, looking out for that. Well, anyways, he's probably like some public liaison or something. So I do think
officer.
so I do think the gun jamming in the holster is orchestrated somehow for him to let's think about this logically.
Bring about some agenda.
Bring about like Article 4, which led to the raid, which we know he was like so adamant about taking that plane, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know.
Well, it's
I like
okay.
Fucking
that.
barbecue.
So here's the other thing. Not only instating Article 4, which letting people have guns out, but saying you can go and pull any member that you think is someone of the 7th Cavalry, which is obviously just going to cause more like a big scene.
Yeah.
And you're obviously going to anger these people
Yeah.
even more. So it's like you're kind of pushing for a
Yeah, it's
fight.
an
Like
abuse of power.
anyone could
It's an abuse of power.
But it's like he wants this to happen. Like you
Right.
know what the outcome of this is.
Right.
Like you know what I mean? There's different ways to do this. You can canvas, you can sort of investigate, you can
Yeah, the dude
do
had an
whatever.
agenda, without
But
a doubt.
he's like, okay, we're going straight to this house. We're
Yeah.
bringing the guns. We're doing this. Like it's
Yeah.
like action right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever I see a cop do cocaine, that's enough for me. I'm like, okay, well, how am I gonna trust this cop now?
Can we compare for a second the death of Sheriff Judd Crawford versus the death of Comedian? Because that's the inciting incident that started the first Watchmen. And we know that he was killed for a very specific reason.
Yep.
And we know that this character who's I wish I knew his name. The guy that escaped the Tulsa massacre.
Oh, Will Reeves.
Will Reeves. Okay, yeah, Will Reeves. We know that he's. I mean, I suspect that he's not part of the 7th Cavalry. He's like part of a bigger thing. So like, do you think this inciting incident is like part of like an Aussie plan, maybe, or like, what do you guys think about the comparison between the comedian's death, and Sheriff Judd Crawford's death?
I don't really see the parallels. I just don't. I think they're very different. I think they're like, well, the only commonality I find is they're both mysterious.
I mean,
That's it.
I feel like this was they were mirroring. I don't know if they were just mirroring using imagery with a death in the first episode versus the death in the first opening scene of the movie, because they even did the blood drop.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
they did the blood drop.
If
Yeah.
it's just like
On the badge, yeah.
ironic like mirroring, that's one
Yeah.
thing. But we all know that Comedian was a dirty player, right? Like he was guilty of many things.
He was a piece of shit.
So I think that like this. So I think he's gonna end up being that same exact character where he's
Could be because he found out like the truth of like Ozymandias' plan or whatever,
yeah
right?
yeah.
And then he was killed. And now
I think it's gonna play out the same way.
it could, you know
somehow.
what, symbolism, like it does kind of make sense. I see that. I don't know if it could be part of I can never say his name, but it could be part of
Ozymandias.
his plan. Yeah, I don't know. It could be. I wonder if he's planned that far, because my thing is like his plan definitely involves Dr. Manhattan in some sense, bringing him back. And then also something
It
to
might
do
not
with
be him, right? It could, like for me, in my mind, Ozymandias is like a guardian now. Like it's somebody else playing around, and he has like he's like the holder of the contingency plan. Maybe.
Well, here's the thing. So you know, like the batteries, and they're like these are like the cancer-causing batteries.
Yeah.
And then like Ozymandias had like a thing about like cancer-causing. Like he wanted people around Dr. Manhattan.
He
Yeah, he
used
framed-
Dr. Manhattan to infect some people. Yeah.
No, he actually didn't. He
He
framed
framed.
Dr. Manhattan. He gave paid off people.
Oh,
to
sorry.
do a
Right.
false
You're right. You're
testimony.
completely right. Yeah. Sorry. He was using chemicals
To give people
cancer. Right.
Yeah,
secretly.
that was a good like blindside. He
Right.
blindsided an omniscient being. Like how fucking gangster
Yeah.
are you to do that?
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot there. I know we were talking about like cast and crew, but we keep diverging, which obviously because there's a lot in the show. Is there any other like cast or crew or things?
Yeah,
that,
man. I want to talk about Detective Looking Glass.
yeah, I was gonna say Looking Glass. Yeah.
Yeah.
he
You know
was
that-
real weird.
Have you guys ever seen Buster Scruggs? Oh, first of all, watch Buster Scruggs.
I haven't seen Buster
The
Scruggs
Ballad
yet.
of Buster Scruggs is so good. It's like, but anyways, he's like it's a short story anthology, but he's like the main guy, the one from the first one, Buster Scruggs, which is like like he's like a cowboy, which is like ironic because there's a lot of like cowboy themes here. Anyway, so like I've always found that actor a little bit creepy because of that one thing I saw. But what do you guys think of Looking Glass?
He's a real, that whole scene when he like puts on this like metallic mask
Yeah, it
and you
was
see
creepy.
it moving. It was reminiscent of Rorschach.
It is,
because he's
very.
kind of doing like the Rorschach test because
He
you
is.
see it in the end.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's just like you see all this stuff like
He's using lights though, and he's using
and
images.
then like images
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
passing by, and it's like, what would you do if I defecate on this? Like, are you a member of the 7th Cavalry? Like,
Yeah.
what would you do if I did this? And then you see, I forgot what like all the images weren't there, like squids and like
There's all kinds of
There
shit.
was
I just have to
Rushmore
say,
and
if you're a
shit.
good interrogator, you don't need to do that shit. You
No,
know?
it's
You
like a
don't-
truth test. I think it was like a truth kind
I
of.
don't
He
know what he
was-
got from it. Yeah.
He actually talks about it. He says that he saw the guy's pupils dilate when he saw the Rorschach masks, right? So
which is like a response.
right. So it's, you know, he's
almost
he's
felt
definitely
like-
getting something from it. But the other thing you miss is too, it's kind of a throwaway line, but he says something about let me put on my face, or Don Johnson tells him to put on his face.
So I can look at you.
Wait,
So I can look at
yeah,
myself.
yeah. So that's a nod back to Rorschach, because Rorschach used to call his mask his face,
Yeah.
right?
So I think if there is a conspiracy, if there is like a hidden truth that the chief is holding, Looking Glass has the other half of it. I think he's the one who's like more involved than anybody else, because that scene where it's like, put on your mask so I can look at myself, like that felt more than just like practicality, like oh your mask is reflective. It's just like, I think it was like some sign of trust, in my opinion.
It to me seemed like he was trying to brainwash the guy or intimidate him or something, which is weird because like it's not fair interrogation. It's like it was like they were already assuming that the guy's guilty.
Oh,
instead
you're
of,
right.
like-
That's actually an interesting way to look at it.
yeah, instead of like they're bullying him instead of like trying to find out what the actual story was.
Yeah. See, if Looking Glass walked out of the pod and said, it's the cattle ranch, like if he was the one that found that information, that would be one thing. But but Sister what's her name?
Knight.
Sister Knight was the one that found that information. Like you're thinking that like
It seems
it was
sketchy.
planted, right?
It seems sketchy because, like, if you're actually trying to investigate something and like do an interrogation and find out the truth, you want the person to be calm. You don't want to make them like nervous and stuff, and then you have to try to find out what their baseline is.
He wasn't
and,
that
like,
nervous
the
though. That's the thing.
No,
a normal
I-
setting. Yeah, but like
think-
the situation, it was.
It was almost like he
very-
was trained to like to be able to go through that.
But it was weird. Like, why would that be the way that you would interrogate someone?
I
Like, it
was
seems like a weird
thinking-
place to start.
It is a
because it's
weird way to-
designed that way. I think basically
Yeah.
the screens
Yeah,
are interacting with his mask,
So if
right?
they just treat everyone like that, they treat everyone like some kind of criminal
Exactly,
who they're
that's-
investigating.
That's exactly
like,
the message.
That's
Well-
crazy.
Well,
That's like,
that's how it's been well established.
That's the world
how the
right now.
cops, Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how the cops like operate.
yeah. So that's sketchy. Like that's not. That's
And that
not
kind of
how-
shows you
we've-
right there
we've-
that the cops itself, like,
We've already established that the cops are also bad
Yeah.
guys.
yeah.
So with the interrogation thing, let me pick that up. Like, I actually think that was like a cool. Like, obviously that shit's not real, but like, I actually kind of like understood the method of that interrogation. Like, you put the guy on the back foot, and you make him like, so if somebody is really good at like putting on a facade, you don't want him to be calm, because then he's got his facade on, he's got his poker face on. But if you bombard him, put him on the back foot, then his body's gonna react
But
viscerally to things that
in real-
will help you. That'll help you, like, you know, like will get you like reactions to things.
But then
Anyways,
in a real investigation, you can't tell if they're actually just reacting because they're nervous.
yeah, for sure. This
Or
is
if
why
they-
they're corrupt
But
cops.
I don't
then
think
you're
they give a
always gonna
shit.
think that
Yeah.
they're guilty. They're
I don't think
always
they
gonna
give a
seem
shit
guilty.
because at the end of the interrogation, Sister Knight takes him into the back
Beats him
room,
up.
kicks the shit out of him.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Well, the
was
thing
super
is, like
sketchy too.
you're supposed to assume that they have some sort of proven method, some
Right.
some technological like mumbo jumbo that like has been working for them so far. Like, I think that's what you're supposed to kind of like take a leap of faith on.
Yeah, I don't
right?
know. I guess.
Right, like you can't impart like real life like things to this, because
Well, I was
like,
just
it was-
curious.
yeah,
I was
oh,
just
yeah,
curious about what's going on.
yeah, it's
Like,
definitely messed up.
it
Like
feels
her
like
kicking in the door in the
something,
first place was
yeah.
messed up. Yeah.
So
And
it definitely
again-
threw me out. I was just like, what?
And again, I think Lindelof is playing with a lot of dichotomy here, right? He's taken a predominantly African American police force and made them just as authoritarian as a predominantly white police force, right? And he's also taken, he's playing with the same things that we see that we experience with white cops, right? Abusive power, right?
Yeah.
Extreme force.
The letter C.
Right?
It
We're
was
seeing a lot of these
definitely
things,
unfair-
and
it
it's
was definitely
happening
an unfair
through.
interrogation. There was
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
not an interrogation. They're not trying to find the truth. They're
Exactly.
assuming that he's guilty.
Exactly, and this is what African Americans claim against police forces of today.
And we saw them
right?
do that with like everybody they were investigating. Everybody smells like bleach. Everybody, like there was no fairness to any of the interactions.
That's why I think we're headed for this amazing revelation that it's basically gonna be like, this idyllic idea that a liberal government is the best thing for everybody. It's not going to turn out to be the best thing for everybody.
Okay,
That's what I think this story's headed.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I do like that thread. So what do we think of? I mean, he's barely there, but what do we think of Red Scare?
Red Scare.
He was cool as shit.
He seems like a good
I like that actor.
backup.
He's very menacing.
Yeah.
Like, he's
Who was
always
the
been
actor who
menacing.
plays that?
I don't know his name, but
Andrew
he's been
Howard.
He's been in a lot of like British like.
Let's see.
What's his name?
I think his name is Andrew. Yeah,
He's
Andrew
always
Howard.
he always plays
Andrew
a bad
Howard.
guy, and he's
yeah.
fantastic.
Or a Russian guy. Always Russian or
yeah,
always
yeah.
British. Yeah. And the fact that they have a Russian, I don't even want to call him an asset. You don't want to like they have like they're using a Russian tough guy.
Yeah.
In the context of this show, with a liberal, the liberally and predominantly African American police force is interesting as well, because that definitely would not happen in Trump's America right now. You wouldn't have a predominantly Russian type of character.
But you don't think Andrew Howard's too old?
No, I don't.
He's 50.
Is he?
He's older than Regina King.
All right.
But he's menacing. He's so
He's
terrifying.
menacing.
Yeah.
Regina King doesn't scare me. Is that a problem?
I would love to see you and Regina King in a room together.
I'm not gonna.
And to see anyway. We'll keep going.
So anyways, do we think Red Scare is a cop? I think he's actually a vigilante.
He's a vigilante, but
He seems like
but
one.
like he's sanctioned by the cops,
yeah,
right?
yeah. The vigilantes
So-
have some sort of connection to the
Yeah.
police. Yeah.
Do we
Yeah.
think well, I mean, have you ever seen a badge on Looking Glass? Or is he also just like some sort
I
of
don't know.
I didn't see a badge on him, but I also didn't see a badge on Panda either. I almost
He
think
definitely
that
is not a cop. I definitely think Panda's not a cop.
some sort of liaison or something.
Because like
Yeah.
if you're gonna have this one guy who has the power over
Keeps track of all weaponry and all that shit.
like dispatching guns, like this
Yeah.
dude is the guy
Yeah.
that the government put there to like
Yeah,
keep
he
you
has to be
guys
an
in check.
impartial party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. That completely
And
makes
like
sense.
all the cops hate him, right?
Yeah.
And that scene in the anyways, let's move on. What other characters have you guys the husband?
Oh, the husband.
Do we think the husband like do we think
Yeah.
the husband like knows anything?
He knows.
He definitely knows.
He saw
stuff.
him
Man,
pull a
he knows.
shotgun
He has
out of his
to,
fucking
yeah.
headboard.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he would
Yeah.
be so confused.
Yeah.
Well, he was
and he
like-
trusts her inherently when he's like, when she's like, you need this or whatever.
Well, no, I mean my wife gives me a gun and says like, "Oh, anybody walks in, shoot him." I'm like, I'm not gonna ask questions. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah, but they also have like adopted white kids. Who
Yeah, I
are,
want to talk
like,
about the kids.
Yeah.
orphans
Wait,
from a
we'll talk
police
about the kids,
family.
right?
Okay,
So
okay.
like obviously he knows.
So here's my problem though.
What?
Oh, they're
wait,
really
shh.
loud.
Well, we should be okay.
It's not picking up.
Okay.
So
Even if it is, I'll knock it out.
okay, 3, 2. So here's the thing though, when she gets Little Bighorn, first of all, like he doesn't know what that is, which is fine because that's a code word.
Yeah.
But then she goes, "I have to go to the bakery." She says bakery and not like I understand like they're in public or whatever, but like it kind of seems like he doesn't know shit all.
No, I think he knows.
No, I
police
think he
chief-
knows.
The police chief did have dinner with them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, and
Yeah.
he knows, and like I think it's more for the kids because the kids were there. That
Yeah.
he's like bakery.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a fan of him.
Yeah. I feel like he's.
He's Black
barely-
Manta.
Oh,
and
that's
and
true.
Aquaman, he's Black Manta.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the new, and he's going to be in Matrix 4.
I was just happy. I was just
as
happy
Morpheus.
that
We don't
she
know that yet.
wasn't-
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we don't know that
I was
yet.
just happy that she wasn't cheating on her husband with the old white cop. Because
Yeah, we don't know that
for a
yet.
minute, I thought that's what was gonna happen.
That
when-
weird hug was too weird.
I don't know. It could have been weird. It could, yeah, maybe. I don't think she was cheating on her husband.
So I don't
mean,
think
why
so
would
either
you,
because nobody
really?
reacted to it, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then like when they were talking outside, And the wife was like, "What are you guys talking about out there?"
They probably know they're in the
Right.
same business together. So the wife knows that he's like a chief,
Yeah.
and the husband knows that
Yeah.
she's in like whatever.
Well, when there was
He
the
knows
sex
she's a
scene, I was
former cop, right?
expecting. When there was a sex scene, I was expecting the two of them to be hooking up because
Oh, no, I
because the
did
cop
not.
drove drunk. He was like drunk, and then he drove.
was high- he was on cocaine.
Yeah, and he went and drove somewhere.
That's why I don't
and the
think.
wife even told him like, "Don't drive. Get someone to pick you up." and
That's
he
why I think the
drove.
cops are gonna be a very slippery slope
Yeah,
in this
100%.
story.
he's
man.
totally
Yeah.
sketchy.
Yeah, for sure.
So, anyways, you want to talk about the kids?
Yeah, but one more character. That fucking Grand National that Regina King was driving. That fucking car is a goddamn beast, man. That's a GT80. That's a GTX Grand National. Fucking beast.
That's a cool
All
character.
right.
Fucking beast. Yeah, I can't wait to see more of that car.
So Frank likes cars. That's a new thing. I didn't know that.
I work in the automotive industry.
Nice,
I
okay.
have for like almost 13 years. I'm a gearhead. What about speaking of vehicles, sorry. The owl ship.
Yeah. What do we think about that? Do you think that's the owl?
I mean, it felt like it came out of nowhere to me. I was just like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like that's there now."
I think it was interesting to see that the cops still
that
had
was
it with them.
the one and only symbolism to the owl, to the night owl.
No, there was a couple more. There was that commercial for the American.
Oh, the
yeah,
show.
and also
American
the
Hero
mug.
Story.
She had like an owl mug.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
she
did
was
she?
drinking on an owl
Oh
mug.
shit! I didn't
There's
realize
a
that.
lot of
right.
symbolism. I feel
Yeah.
like
I
if you
realized
Yeah,
that.
that
rewatch it,
thing,
there's
that
gonna be so many
Minuteman, the
things.
hero show that's
Yeah.
going on in the
Yeah, the Holy
background.
Justice.
Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
like talking about that. I think will be interesting as well.
Yeah.
Did you see the poster, a dollar bill inside the hideout for the 7th Cavalry? He was like, he looked like he was
Yeah,
holding
yeah,
an
yeah.
African American
the
kid
dollar
up by his scruff or some shit.
No, I thought he was hugging him.
Was it hugging?
I think so.
I thought it was like,
Oh.
I thought it was like one of those like racist,
I barely saw
you
it,
know, like
honestly.
posters you buy when you're a racist.
I mean,
I
it could
didn't
be.
see
Yeah, but
that.
when you go to the
You could
racist
buy
shop
those.
and you pick them up.
The convention, the racist convention, White Con.
What else am I supposed to fucking say?
It's
I'm like,
funny.
I'm talking like trying to say it's racist propaganda.
No, for sure. No, I think it's funny
Okay.
though.
The racist shop.
But yeah,
Racist
we were. I know there's other characters. So the
It's
the
right
kids
next to Ned
characters-
Flanders leftatorial.
I mean,
Yeah.
could be. But we were talking about the kids, and I think it was implied, and I've read in other places that the kids were adopted from that night, from
Yeah,
that
that's
their
what I'm getting.
parents were
Yeah.
cops who were killed. I really like that Topher kid when he like punches that
Yeah.
kid, and he's like,
That kid-
when he's like, why did you punch him? And she's like,
Redfordations.
well, you wanted to punch him,
Yeah.
right? And
Well,
her
you
face
couldn't.
was like, he's 10, but that wasn't like, no, I don't want to punch him. It was like, he's a kid.
Oh shit! That's another thing we didn't connect on.
What?
The the reparations,
Yeah.
right? that happened.
Redfordations.
Yeah. No, that's the racist way of saying it in that world.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Racist? Oh, is that?
Because they-
I thought that was
Redfordations.
actually just the word for it.
No.
Oh, okay, got it.
It was a
Yeah,
racial
yeah,
slur.
yeah.
Wait, how did
no,
you
it was a
guys know
racial
that?
slur. Because I picked it up. Because the white kid said Redfordations, and then he ran over to him and punched him
Yeah,
in the
he
face.
didn't say Okay, got it.
Yeah.
No, but I
Maybe.
thought that was named that because of Robert Redford, the president.
No, that's what the haters named
Ah,
it. Yeah.
I didn't pick
But
that up.
so remember I was saying like we have a population of African American, a lot of African Americans who are living in very good economic conditions. Obviously, this is a big part of it. right?
Yeah.
If there was reparations for let's say 80% of the African American population in the United States, that could fucking probably bankrupt white America. Like in terms of the money that would come out of other programs to pay for something
Well,
like that too.
they were promised
Right?
How much you're
reparations
giving
and we're
them.
never giving
Sure,
them.
sure, but obviously this is a bigger issue than we know of right now, right?
Because that happens in the modern day world too. There's people who like don't have to pay taxes if
Sure.
they have like a native.
But
card.
reparations are not like reparations would be like to the tune of like a couple $100,000,
So-
almost
So
$1
you
million.
think in this world, so that's why
There's been a giant economic
I don't
swing.
think in
I
the
see.
world, I think in this town particularly, where there's been like this mass attack. Because one thing you
Oh,
can
Oh,
say.
I
that's
don't-
maybe why they started the show with that thing.
Because here's the thing, it's 1921. You basically destroy like the biggest community, the
Yes.
black community
Yeah.
that is affluent.
Yeah.
And so obviously, and about like they said,
I don't know if
200,
it's just
300.
one town.
but maybe
No, but I think the reparations because refer to that town only.
that makes sense because of why would the massacre of Tulsa, Oklahoma,
Yeah,
to
that
start
makes
that show.
sense. Yeah.
No, because
Right?
I mean,
'Cause it
there's-
connects it
there's
all the way
a lot
through.
of-
Because there was reparations off that as well that they were
Sure.
going to do for
Sure.
the actual event.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're destroying this entire community. These people have no homes,
Yeah.
no family, no nothing.
Yeah.
And so I think some things were like tax free or whatever else. So I think this kid, and it might relate to something else, but in my head it's probably related to that this kid was like, oh, well, did you get it like tax free because of whatever,
Yeah.
because
Right.
of this stuff happened to
Right.
you? Like it was more of that
Right.
line of questioning, which is it incurs like the racist part
Yeah,
of it.
that's why she said he's not a racist, but he's on the right path.
Like I
Yeah.
doubt, I don't know. I have some doubts about it being in one town only. I think it's like I don't know. Like
You
I
think
don't
it's
know
more
if
of a
you-
national thing?
It's
Yeah,
a
I would
national
think it would be a
thing.
national thing
Like,
too,
why
because it's
would-
named after the president.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
And also like you think the director's just gonna like make the society like this like dystopian society in one town.
No,
Right? Like if I was a director, I'd
Well,
write
that's what he did in The Leftovers.
But
I've-
and here's also the other thing is, so I read this. I was kind of reading.
Well, it
reviews.
wasn't dystopian,
No, but
but
like
yeah.
if we're talking about like this like alternate reality
Yeah.
thing, like this alternate reality thing only affected one town.
No, I don't
Right?
think it only affected one town, but the Tulsa thing only affected Tulsa, and that's
Yeah.
where the
Yeah,
story
but
takes
that's
place.
that's before the alternate reality hit. That was our
Yeah.
reality.
That was our reality and their reality. Like that
Right.
Yeah,
happened.
shared reality.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
But they
so like
but in our
Shared
world there
history.
wasn't there hasn't
Exactly.
been reparations,
Yeah,
right?
and in this reality,
Okay.
they've made it. And
Right.
in my head, this is
Right.
what happened. They've made it, and so because of that, they've been sort of given this
Right.
this chance. And there's definitely stuff going around the world in terms of other things.
Sure.
But I read somewhere in a review of someone who read it that you were going to learn more about these in like episode 2 about like where they came from and like what it means.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the actual reparations or
it
reparations,
could be like
whatever.
Ground Zero or whatever,
Yeah.
but
For me, it relates to the Tulsa 1921.
Yeah,
That's where, like, I'm
and
going,
Redford
but-
did it, so that's why it's not in our world, because he's the one who put those in place, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So and they were they were calling that the blue wave, and if you got a very very strong-willed liberal, like highly liberal president, that's definitely something they would take a real look at, right? Is like doing reparations. Somebody should do reparations in our world, but who
For
knows?
what?
For slavery.
Well,
right.
they've talked about this a lot, and it's been a topic of great discussion in the
Yeah.
government the last year and the last few years because they were promised reparations
Yeah.
after they were given freedom, and they were not given those.
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
weren't.
They were
And it
promised
was-
an ox and
or
100
mule or whatever,
acres. Yeah.
Yes, and
mule
most
and
of them-
100 acres. Yeah, sorry.
and most of them were not given that.
Yeah.
But that's like a different story.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
it's
wanna
like
get
how
into
do you
that, please.
determine who gets what?
Exactly.
Like 100 years
let's
after
not-
something happened. Like,
It's tough.
let's not get into that.
Yeah, let's not get into
This
that.
is not that show.
But obviously, this like I think that I think that the idea, like the plot device of the reparations or Redfordations, whatever you want to call it, I think that this is going to play a huge role in. I think it played a huge role in creating the world that we see between
yeah.
1985
That makes
and
sense.
in 2019.
And like, and I love how like one of the first scenes we see is Black Oklahoma, and
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
and the chief is watching it. It's,
Yeah.
like it's very like it hits you with like a culture shock. It's like here's your world, right? Like it's like things are different here. Like you don't know what yet, but like this thing about like this play about like southern whatever. I don't know what Oklahoma's about. I'm guessing it's
well, genocide for Native Americans.
yeah,
but yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean
it's
to
all
seem
right.
insensitive there,
It's
but
all
like, I just felt like that was a good. So I do think that it is more symbolic that it takes place in Tulsa. I definitely don't think it's like this like society is just based around this one town.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What did you guys think of the music?
I mentioned I loved it.
I love the music.
Yeah.
I didn't notice. I wasn't paying attention to the
Really?
music
I had like
for
an
once,
80s
which
vibe.
is
It was
Right.
very like it was definitely like on trend with things like Stranger Things, but it was it was good.
Yeah, I didn't know. It
Very
kind of just
good.
blended into the background.
was there
for
like
me.
one hip hop?
Yeah, there was.
was.
And
And
it was the
like,
white
stood out.
guy. And it was the white guy
Yeah.
rolling down the road. Was it Drake? I think it was Drake. Wasn't it Drake?
I don't
No,
know.
no, it wasn't the white guy. It wasn't.
No,
it
it's the white
the
guy.
kid and the
No.
baby. White guy.
No.
The
No,
music,
it
the
was
music
the
didn't
white guy.
bother me, which is good. It didn't throw me out of the scene.
Yeah,
It's the Cavalry guy at the beginning.
It was
was
listening to
listening
like a hardcore hip hop
Oh,
song.
okay. No,
Yeah.
no. It was a transition song because it started with the baby.
Oh,
and
it did.
and
It
the
started on the
child.
road.
It's
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
it-
And it
then it was-
transitioned to
Yeah.
his radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the music did stand out. Like obviously, I point out soundtrack when it's like a big thing. For me, the soundtrack wasn't like the greatest thing. I did like it definitely, but the cinematography was so
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Beautiful.
That
It's beautifully shot.
that
show.
one shot where like the sky was like reflected on the ground, and it was just like when the cop was walking. I thought I was like, okay, I'm in for a good show here. So like even just the technical aspects of it, I thought was really great.
Yeah, I like the one scene where Regina goes to meet the guy who tells her to come without a mask or whatever, and then he's shining the bright lights on her face, and like you could see her eyes are like a light color brown or something. Like, they're like honey brown. I was like, oh,
I saw that too.
I never noticed that. That's cool.
That I noticed that with her eye color as well. And then one thing about that scene as well is that sort of that connection when he still has that sign that says "Watch this boy."
Yeah.
Or what is that
From 1921.
And that just broke my heart because I know that he probably wasn't. We don't know his story.
Yeah,
we don't know what he went through.
Yeah.
But you can assume it's some crazy shit.
Yeah, but back in the 80s, he was teaching a young kid how to fly a jet so he could go save his father. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That's a reference for old people. That's from Iron Eagle. It's like the first like jet movie where guys my age kind of like glommed onto.
Oh.
But anyways,
I think
that was completely lost on this crowd.
Top Gun is the only like plane movie I know.
Chappie. His name was Chappie. Louis Gossett Jr. The actor played this guy named Chappie.
Oh, okay, cool.
Fuck. You guys suck.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry, Frank.
You guys suck. Listen, if you like Iron Eagle, please support me. Instagram, okay? Meanwhile,
you'll
_pod.
find your audience.
Yeah.
Iron Eagle is great.
So yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up here. We tried our best to pull out every thread of the sweater here, but I'm sure we missed like some nooks and crannies. And like I said, I think we're gonna make this into a series. So stay tuned for episode 2 through the end of this season. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know if we missed a thread that you guys wanted to talk about, or if you like the show in general, just let us know. Meanwhile _pod, Instagram and Twitter. So yeah, this has been Chris.
Frank.
What's up?
This is Christina.
Peace.
Have a good day.